the cost behavior, analysis, and use. We are now on chapter 3. Di ba we discussed already variable and fixed? Okay. Ano sabi natin kanina? The total variable cost will change, di ba, with changes in the level of activity. Direct, di ba, ang kanyang behavior. As the level of activity, like production, no, increases, no, the total variable cost will increase also. Pero we said also that the variable cost per unit will remain constant. Total fixed cost will remain constant, pero yung fixed cost per unit, no, will change inversely with changes in the level of activity. Habang tumataas yung production, bumababa yung fixed cost per unit. And we call that, no, taking advantage of the economies of scale. Now, the activity base, also called the cost driver. Okay, so ano yung cost drivers natin? Pwede bang, ano yung levels of activity na sinasabi ko kanina? I always say the production in units, no? So could it be the units produced, as I was saying, or could it be the machine hours, or could it be the labor hours, or it could be the miles driven, no? Okay, so marami yan. Depende kung ano yung activity mo inside your company. So what's this? This is the true variable cost. Okay? So sinasabi natin kanina, kung 1 peso per text, therefore if you have 10 text messages, that's 10 pesos. Okay? Next. Ayun pala yan. The variable cost per unit naman remains the same over wide ranges of activity. O, ito naman, yung variable cost per unit, it remains constant. No? Okay, next. Extent of variable cost. The proportion of variable cost differs across organizations. So what's this? A public utility company with large investments in equipment will tend to have fewer variable costs. So another one, a manufacturing company will often have many variable costs. Some service companies have high variable costs, while other service companies have high fixed costs. A merchandising company has a high proportion of variable costs. So different organizations have different levels of variable costs. All right, so examples for merchandising companies, the variable cost would be the cost of goods sold. For manufacturing companies, you have the direct materials and then the direct labor and the variable portion of the manufacturing overhead. For merchandising and manufacturing companies, as regards their operating expenses, the variable expenses are commissions, the shipping costs, and clerical costs of invoicing. And then for service companies, you have supplies, travel, and clerical. Those are examples of variable costs depending on types of industries. Okay, so this is another example of a total variable cost. All right. Oh, now there's what we call the step, no, variable cost. Ayan. A step variable cost is a resource that is obtainable only in large chunks, such as maintenance, workers, and whose costs change only in response to fairly wide changes in activity. So nakikita nyo to? Okay, hindi siya diretsong ganun, di ba, pataas. No? Here, up to this level, hindi na niya kaya, tataas siya dito. Tapos, meron na naman sa certain range. No? So it is a step variable cost. Okay, hindi diretso yung increase niya. Okay? And one example of that is the maintenance worker salary. Okay? Next. The small changes in the level of production are not likely to have any effect on the number of maintenance workers employed. Pero pag nare-reach niya yung range na yon, tataas na siya ulit. Okay? That's the step variable cost. All right. Ayan, this is the graph. Let's see. Okay. So another one is the total fixed cost. What did we say? The total fixed cost doesn't change, correct? Okay. It remains constant. Let's have an example of that. Ayun. Let's say, for example, may monthly bill ka sa iyong cellphone. So ito yun. Your cell phone bill probably includes a fixed amount related to the total minutes allowed in your calling plan. And then lastly, you have the fixed cost per unit. What happens? Average fixed cost per unit decrease as the activity level increases. Let's have an example here. So habang dumadami yung gamit mo, bumababa ngayon yung cost mo per minute. Okay? Now, there are types of fixed costs. They are the committed and the discretionary fixed costs. Okay, what are the committed fixed costs? They are long-term. They cannot be significantly reduced in the short term. Let us say, for example, ikaw manager ka, no? You were hired, no? by the company. Okay, kasama ba sa obligation mo kung paano pababain yung depreciation expense ng building nyo? Hindi, dinatnan mo na lang yun. Diba? That's fixed. Dine-depreciate na yan every month, every year. So the depreciation on buildings and equipment and the real property taxes, they are the committed fixed costs. They cannot be significantly reduced. In fact, within your authority, hindi mo siya kayang i-reduce. Okay? Now, there are what we call the discretionary fixed costs. They may be changed, they may be altered in the short run depending on your management decision. What are some examples? Let us say advertising and research and development. Okay, this is within your power, not to reduce your advertising costs. Like what happened during the lockdown. Many companies, they opted to reduce some of their fixed costs. Kasi nakasara yung mga company eh. Kahit nakasara yung mga company, certain costs remain to be incurred by the companies. Like for example, you are renting your business space. So, wala kang choice. Nakasara ka, but you are paying your fixed expenses. I have some clients in Angeles. Yung mga hotels, this is actually a hotel chain. Pero yung mga hotels nila, they own the buildings, pero yung lot hindi eh. They're just renting the lot. So, di ba nagkaroon ng mandate yung government to close muna yung operations ng mga hotels. So, the hotels were closed, but they continued to pay the rentals for their lots. O, isang madaling example na, it is true, nagkaroon ng konting concession eh. Siguro, they waive the rent for 1 month or 2 months. Diba? Pero after that, magbabayad ka pa rin ng rent. Diba? So that's one example. So discretionary fixed costs, it is, they may be altered in the short term by current managerial decisions. And these are the examples that were given. But I know most of the companies, ang tinira talaga yung advertising. Ang pinakamasaklap, siyempre yung kanilang mga salaries, they have to reduce. Tama, nagtanggalan. Tama, tanggalan. Maraming natanggal eh. Kasi they have to reduce. Kasi for some companies, the salaries that's fixed to them eh. So, tinanggal nila yung mga employees nila para mabawasan ng kanilang fixed salaries expense. And yet you say that the most important resource of the company is the human resource. Kasi sila yung unang binawasan. You realize that? Okay, the trend toward fixed costs, the trend in many industries is toward greater fixed costs relative to variable costs. The explanation. As machines take over many mundane tasks previously performed by humans, knowledge workers are demanded for their minds rather than their muscles. And knowledge workers tend to be salaried, highly trained, and difficult to replace. The cost of compensating these valued employees is relatively fixed rather than variable. For this certain scenario, this is true. Okay. Now, is labor a variable or a fixed cost? It says here it differs across countries, depending on labor regulations, labor contracts, and custom. In France, Germany, China, and Japan, management has little flexibility in adjusting the size of the labor force. So labor costs are more fixed in nature. What about in the US and the United Kingdom? It says your labor costs are more variable in nature. And most companies in the United States continue to view direct labor as a variable cost. Now, we mentioned something about relevant range. Sabi natin kanina, di ba, the cost behavior. Pag sinabi mong total variable cost changes with the changes in the level of activity within a relevant range. Ano yung relevant range? The relevant range of activity for a fixed cost is the range of activity over which the graph of the cost is flat. So yung cost behavior is true, no, within this range. Kasi outside this range, nag-iiba na eh. Kahit fixed siya, tumataas siya. Diba? As I mentioned kanina, yung rental cost, no, yung manufacturing site. Eh kung ang kaya lang nun, 200,000 units. Beyond the 200,000 units, I need to rent another manufacturing site. So yung fixed, hindi siya mananatiling constant. So magdadagdag siya. Alright? So for example, assume office space is available at a rental of 30,000 per year in increments of 1,000 square feet. Okay. So fixed cost would increase in a step fashion at a rate of 30,000 for each additional 1,000 square feet. Kung 1,000 square feet lang ang kailangan mo, it remains at 30,000. But if you'll be needing another 1,000, you will have to increase your fixed cost by another 30,000. Okay, so I hope you understand what relevant range is. Now, how does this step function pattern differ from a step variable cost? Kasi parang kanina kamukha lang siya ng step variable cost, di ba? Okay. Gumagalaw lang siya, okay, after this, after this, after this. Okay, how are they different? So step variable cost can be adjusted more quickly as conditions change, and the width of the activity steps is much wider for the fixed cost. So parang pareho ang kanilang behavior, okay, pero mas malaki yung range, no, na ginagamit ni fixed cost. May I ask one of the accountant? No? Okay. Let's have a quick check. Which of the following statements about cost behavior are true? Fixed cost per unit vary with the level of activity. Mag-change ba siya? Per unit? Or variable cost per unit are constant within the relevant range. Ito. Total fixed costs are constant within the relevant range. Total variable costs are constant within the relevant range. O yung letter D, clearly, this is already wrong, di ba? This is not true. Ayan. So, ano lang, yung A, B, and C. Kasi si D, total variable cost will change. Ayan, okay. Now, if you are working as an accountant, no, for private companies, you will realize, no, that the most of the expenses and the costs that we encounter, they are what? Mixed costs. They are semi-variable costs. Anong ibig niyang sabihin? Meron siyang component na variable, meron siyang component na fixed. Diba? I understand yung mga telephone bills natin, meron siyang portion na fixed, meron siyang portion na variable. Right? Or beyond a certain, let's say for example, no, my plan is 2,000 pesos per month. Diba? But there's a certain limit. Diba? If I exceed yung mga services na nandun sa 2,000 per month, magiging variable na siya, diba? Nag-i-increase na siya doon sa mga additional services. Okay? So that's what we call the mixed cost. It contains both variable and fixed elements. Ayan. And that is why this is the regression, di ba, formula. Tapos na ba kayo ng statistics? Sabihin, how much is my total cost? My total cost consists of the fixed cost represented by A and the variable cost represented by BX. I repeat, fixed cost plus variable cost is equals to total cost, represented by the equation y is equals to A plus BX. Guys, ito yung ginagamit ninyo sa regression. Kaya lang siguro I suspect you are using siguro a statistics software. Kaya hindi nyo masyadong natatandaan si y is equals to A plus BX. Kasi di ba if you are conducting a research, normally yung framework mo, it's a causality eh. Di ba regression requires a cause and effect. Di ba, for example, no, your research is investigating the factors affecting the organizational commitment of employees. For example, no, those factors are, isa na lang, no, empowerment affects organizational commitment. So empowerment is your independent variable. Organizational commitment is your dependent variable. So if that is the framework of your research, no, y is the dependent variable. Y is your what? Is your organizational commitment. And bx is your empowerment. Kasi regression is the study of causality. There is the cause and there is the effect. Yun ang mga research natin, di ba? Cause and effect. Parang si ano kanina, what are the factors affecting customer satisfaction? So meron siya kanina, di ba? Yung isang student natin kanina. Okay. So, yung mga causes ng customer satisfaction, yun ang kanyang mga independent variables. Yung customer satisfaction, that's the dependent variable. Okay? Now, let's go to the next one. If your fixed monthly utility charge is 40, your variable cost is 0.03 per kilowatt hour, and your monthly activity level is 2,000 kilowatt hours, what is the amount of your utility bill? Ayan. Meron ka raw fixed, di ba na 40? Tapos meron kang variable na 0.03 per kilowatt hour. Okay, applying y is equals to a plus bx, which is fixed cost plus variable cost. Magkano ang fixed? 40. Magkano ang variable? 2,000 times 0.03. Tama? So, that's 2,000 times 0.03. Is that 60 or 600? 60. So, 40 plus 60, that will be 100. Diba? Y is equals to A plus BX. Nakita nyo, this is the total cost. It's equals to 40, that's the fixed, plus the variable. 0.03 times 2,000. That is 100. Next. Okay, account analysis and the engineering approach. Let's just take this lightly. In account analysis, each account is classified as either variable or fixed based on the analyst's knowledge of how the account behaves. The engineering approach classifies costs based upon an industrial engineer's evaluation of production methods, materials, labor, and overhead requirements. Okay, why and how to reduce fixed costs or switch them to variable costs. Ayan. Diba sabi natin kanina, yung mga naipit ngayong lockdown, ngayong pandemic, they continued incurring their fixed costs, even if there are no more business operations. Okay. So here we are introduced with the term outsourcing. What's outsourcing? Ito very, very typical na siya, very ordinary na ngayon yung outsourcing. Miss HR, ano yung outsourcing? Why do we outsource? Ano pangalan ni ni HR specialist?
Si Ma'am Rose po.
Rose Gonzalez po.
Rose. Rose, are you here?
Yes, sir.
Rose, ano yung outsourcing?
Outsourcing, from other, outside our offices. Para hindi sila, they are not part of the company, sir. They're coming from, yun nga, they call it outsource. They're hired from other companies. Like, for example, ang Romac is an outsource.
That's correct.
The TTI is getting, they're not employees of the company, pero yung, for the utilities, they're getting from Roma. So, those are the outsource of the Department of Trade and Industries.
Even sina Jollibee, sina McDonald's, naka-outsource yata yung ano nila, yung mga personnel nila.
Yung mga crew po yata. Mga crews.
Yeah, why? I think there is an existing law that prohibits outsourcing yung mga functions central to the operations of the company. Is that right? So halimbawa hospital ka, syempre yung mga nurses, they are used do sa central operations ng company. Can you outsource the nursing employees? Parang hindi, no?
Parang blue collar jobs lang, sir, yung pwedeng i-outsource.
Oo, siguro hindi siya blue collar. Siguro yung functions indirect to the central operations of the company.
Parang contract of service. Hindi pa siguro yun. Parang job order or contract of service.
That's why we outsource yung mga security services, diba? Yung mga janitorial and maintenance services. Even laundry services we can outsource, diba? Kasi it's hard naman to maintain your own laundry section, no, in the hotel or let's say in the hospitals, diba? So even that one, kaya 4 kilo na lang yung ano ngayon, diba? Yung kung ilang tuwalya, kung ilang bedsheet ang binibigay sa iyo. Tapos na-maintain mo pa siya properly. In Mother Teresa of Calcutta Medical Center, even the meals of the patients we outsource. Naka-outsource na siya kasi it's easier to monitor. Diba? So kung ilang rooms ang may laman, yun lang ang pakakainin. So, meron kaming contractor na nandun. Ina-outsource namin pati yung patient meals. Kasi kung minsan it's hard to monitor also yung mga kitchen, diba? Especially if that is not your forte. Diba? Ang dami mo ring waste, ang dami ring nawawala, probably. Diba? So kung naka-outsource yan, so bilang na bilang mo. So halimbawa, you have 100 patients in one day. O assuming let's say 100 yung kakainin nila, 100 times 100. So eksakto, no? That is one advantage of outsourcing. Tapos Miss HR, meron pang ibang yon, bakit sila nag-outsource, di ba? Anong pagkakaiba kung employee mo siya or hindi mo siya employee? Anong pagkakaiba nun?
Yung mga benefits.
Yung
mga allowances po at saka benefits.
Oo, siyempre, hindi
pag gusto mong tanggalin. Madaling tanggalin, boss.
Ang sakit, no? Sakit talaga. Pag gusto mong tanggalin talaga. Kapag gusto mong ligwakin, sabi mo, di ba? Ligwak ka agad. Hindi ka nadadaan sa labor, no?
Yes, sir.
Pero guys, ang sakit talaga tanggapin nun. Pero there are companies naman, kahit hindi nila direct hired employees, they check also on the rewards that are given to these employees. No, a case in point, no, may mga companies na check nila yung company ng mga security guards kung binabayaran yung 13th month ni security guard, kung binabayaran yung SSS ni security guard, ni PhilHealth at saka ni pag-ibig. So may mga companies naman na gano'n. No? Okay. Now, what is offshoring? So sabi niya, Honda and Toyota Thailand plants or HSBC back office functions in China. Demonstrating how to split a mixed cost. And this is now the high-low method. Let's have an example. Assume the following hours of maintenance work and the total maintenance cost for 6 months. Okay, so this is maintenance cost. And it is classified as a mixed cost. Sabi niya, Now, in January, if there are 625 hours of maintenance, the total cost is 7,950. In February, it's 450 hours. Ang nai-incur mo, 7,400. So, you are given the number of hours and the total maintenance cost. And you know that this total maintenance cost consists of fixed and variable. Meron daw bang way na malaman ko kung magkano yung fixed portion at malaman ko kung magkano yung kanyang variable portion? No? Of course, here makukuha natin, pero sa actual medyo nahihirapan akong i-apply siya. Hindi siya eksakto, makakatulong siya pero hindi siya eksakto. Okay. Now, there's what we call the high-low method. Kukunin mo raw yung highest volume or yung highest quantity at saka yung lowest volume or lowest quantity. In the hours of maintenance column, asan dito yung highest number? 850. Tama ba? What's the lowest number here? 450. Okay. Now let's go to total maintenance cost. What's the highest number? 9,800. What's the lowest number? 7,400. Kaya tinatawag siyang high-low method because we're getting the highest numbers and then the lowest numbers, both volume or quantity and cost. Okay, what's the formula? How do you compute for the variable cost per hour of maintenance? It is equal to the change in cost divided by the change in hours. Tignan natin yung change in cost. No? What's the highest cost? Ito, do you see this? 9,800. What's the lowest cost? 7,400. What's the difference? 2,400. So that is my numerator, 2,400. Okay, next. What's my highest quantity? 850 hours. What's my lowest quantity? 450 hours. So 850 minus 450, you get 400. And that is my denominator. What's my formula? The change in costs divided by the change in quantity. And the answer is your variable cost per unit. In this case, unit is R. 6 pesos per hour. Okay? Now, let's compute for the fixed cost. Okay, mako-compute mo ba kung magkano yung fixed cost? Here, di ba? Ayan. So, kanina we have computed already the variable cost per unit. Ito. Guys, do you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Alright.
Yes, sir.
Oh, wala siya. Ayan, di ba it's $6 per hour? Now, let us take the numbers, yung mga highest numbers natin. Diba? Okay. Kung sinasabi mo $6 per hour ang kanyang variable cost rate. So if you have 850 hours of maintenance times 6, now you will have a number and deduct that from the total of 9,800. Diba sabi natin kanina, total cost is equals to fixed cost plus variable cost. Therefore, total cost minus variable cost is equals to fixed cost. Ito yun. Okay, therefore, 9,800, which is the total cost, minus the computed variable cost of 5,100. Therefore, you have a total fixed cost of 4,700. Okay, now let's apply the same procedure for the low numbers. No? Okay, let's have the low numbers. I don't know if it is there, but you can do that also. You can calculate 450 no, times 6 minus 7,400. You should be able to get 4,700 also. Do you have a calculator? I don't have a calculator. Check lang natin. Now, 450 times the variable rate of 6, that's 2,700 minus 7,400. And you will get 4,700. So, pareho lang kanyang fixed cost. Pero, syempre, ginawa to para magpareho. In actual, you don't expect na eksaktong-eksakto siya. Ha? Syempre, meron kang allowance for errors. Okay? So, the cost equation for maintenance is here. Y is equals to 4,700 plus 6x. O, pag inano mo to, x is 450. 6 times 450 plus 4,700. You must get 7,400. Okay, let's have a quick check. Sales, salaries, and commissions are 10,000 when 80,000 units are sold and 14,000 when 120,000 units are sold. Using the high-low method, what is the variable portion of sales, salaries, and commissions? Ano yung formula natin? Change in cost over change in quantity. Let's have the change in cost. No? The total cost here is 14,000 minus 10,000. Magkano yon? 4,000. That is your numerator, correct? Okay, let's have your denominator. 120,000 minus 80,000, that's 40,000. Tama? Okay. So, the difference of 4,000 divided by 40,000.
0.10.
0.10 per unit. This is your variable rate. Ito pala siya. Diba? Ito yung difference in cost. 14,000 minus 10,000, 4,000. Ito. Difference in units. 120 minus 80, you have 40,000. So 4,000 divided by 40,000, you have 0.10 per unit. Well, let's have another quick check. Let's have another quick check. This time, no, we are going to look for the fixed cost. So how do you compute for the fixed cost? Itutuloy mo lang yung formula, no? Once you have computed the variable cost per unit, i-apply mo lang siya saan? Dun sa quantity. Okay? And then, quantity times the variable rate, i-deduct mo siya dun sa total cost. Then you will arrive at your fixed cost. Let's look at the computation. Ayan. So, di ba ito yung formula mo? Ito yung y is equals to a plus bx, which is the total fixed cost plus the total variable cost. Okay. Assuming you have the total cost, no, gagamitin natin yung high, no, which is 14,000. Okay. So total cost is equals to 14,000. How do you compute for your total fixed cost? You know that the variable rate is 0.10 multiplied by 120,000. So, ang gagawin mo lang, yung total cost minus the variable cost, of course, you will have your fixed cost. In this case, the total of 14,000 minus the computed variable cost of 12,000, then you will have 2,000. Is that clear? No? Okay. Okay, I think that ends the discussion for this chapter.